negotiations at the time, but I do understand very well the concept. And part of the HUD concept under the federal law was a pilot program that you're referring to, and everybody on Facebook seems to be targeting as some sort of revelation here. So Fred, if I'm missing something on that HUD project,
And I'm not. Again, I said for transparency purposes, that is the extreme case, and they are all affordable
we
housing
meet here
units.
twice a month, the planning board meets 3 times a month. I can give you every meeting schedule going. We were on, our website covers just about every situation with plans that you want to see, even though that's been refuted. It's there on Facebook, excuse me, it's there on our website for you to see. I don't know how this town could be any more transparent where other towns are not even equal to this. So I defend the transparency that we have. I've met you first time tonight, sir. I'm here for several years in every one of these meetings, and this room is empty. So
I heard that last town council meeting.
Thank you for being here.
Mayor?
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for the opportunity to address your comments.
I appreciate that, but you used that same excuse at the last meeting as a defense that, because you didn't show up, your opinion kind of doesn't matter. Unfortunately, well not unfortunately, graciously, I have a
very inaccurate statement.
You
That's
said
a
that I already
very
said that at
inaccurate
the last town
statement.
council
You
meeting.
seem to have an agenda, sir. I thank you very much for your remarks. Would you sum up, please?
Sure, no problem. Councilman Gallagher, you were going to make a comment?
Yeah, I did. I typically don't jump in to like a poll, but my mother did teach in Hanover Township for 30 years. I moved here because of the school system, and my children benefited from it immensely. I did teach drums in Hanover Township schools. I love these schools. I took band camp in these schools and played baseball here, even though I didn't live here. I can give anybody my word, and I was chastised in a fun way for a couple years when I became a committeeman that I'm still a Board of Education member. I don't think there's anything more important than our children and their education and their safety. So I will say, and I've said repeatedly, if we get the opportunity, which we do, to divide that pilot money into a way that will be very fair for the school, I will say on top of a mountain that I will do that, period. And that's what I'll say, that everything you said, that's something that's very important where I have to jump in. As 1/5 of this body, the entire Hanover Township has my word that I would be the last guy to leave the schools high and dry, period.
Thank you.
I think that there's nobody who's sitting on this dais that has ever done anything that negatively impacted the schools. In fact, we go way out of our way to communicate with the schools in terms of information. Let's go back, since you wanted to raise an issue of what something happened several years ago, and let's talk about the Horse Hills Road project. The Horse Hills Road project, we evaluated, sir, the upside and the downside of what it could be versus what it is. So here's some numbers to contemplate, and then you can review and think about how you would have voted on the issue. But here's the opportunity for you to think about it. Horse Hills Road project has 78 units in it. It produces on average somewhere between 35 to 38 students. If that weren't built, the other side of it would have been, and planner, correct me if I'm wrong, it would have been 785 total units, because we would have to use the fair share 5-to-1 ratio. So on one hand, I look at 78 units, they produce arguably 40 students, which impact the school, and on the other hand, I'm looking at 785 units
3-bedroom.
that could result in 300 students. So if we look at the upside and the downside, and we evaluate the decision in terms of what's the best impact to our schools, I'd ask you to take it into consideration. And I can assure you, as a student of economics, we evaluate on this board every dollar that gets spent by this board. We look at it one way: we're spending people's money. Every dollar is an incremental spend. So I can assure you that is a very fiscally conservative operation. And I can assure you, as to what Mr. Gallagher said, that we are very supportive and we will remain supportive of our schools, and we've never demonstrated any other approach to school funding in the past that would suggest in any way, shape, or form that we would be doing something differently going forward. And that's all I can share with you, some facts on the matter.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I,
Appreciate your time.
Can I just clarify a few things? Doug, a couple of things. First, I like what you said about you like where we are and how we got here. That's
why I moved
that's
here.
helpful. No, about the affordable housing, the numbers, the settlement, and I understand your point. You just want to understand what's going to happen. So I want to answer a few things. First, we have a plan, a settlement plan that includes River Park and Pine Plaza. And it includes, as part of the negotiations, that there will be a pilot. But there'll be a separate meeting, and there'll be a public hearing, and there'll be a pilot, there'll be a vote. I'm going to tell you that it's going to have to be part of our plan, or else we'll have a problem with compliance with our affordable housing obligation. But there'll be a public hearing, there'll be an analysis presented, there'll be a chance to ask questions about it. And I think, I take note about your pro formas and the decision-making process. I want to explain to you too, that this wasn't your conventional type of pro forma, because part of this whole process was we had a number ordered. And a lot of it was just about how we can bring that development number to a minimum. And we can bring the bedrooms to a minimum for a start. So it's not always going to be a fair analysis, but you're saying, I want to understand that. That'll come out when we have that pilot before you. What'll also come out is there's a possibility that the governing body at that time will look at an ordinance as to how it wants to allocate funds. All of that will come forward. So my point is, I appreciate what you said about where we are, because that takes a lot of the explaining. I think we've explained a lot about how we came up with the numbers as far as units. But now you're asking about the dollars, and that's going to be the next phase as we go forward. And you'll get those answers. So to be patient, because it's going to happen, and when it does, then you can make you said you're going to have to make your own conclusions. Try not to wait, because I'm telling you, you'll get a lot of that information as we go forward before there's a vote on